If it were the Native Americans who discovered Europe instead of Columbus, would history have changed? Is the gap between civilizations due to differences in effort and talent? Or is it just a trick of geographical fate? If the technology and wealth we enjoy are actually due to chance, how would you feel about that? You may have thought about this at least once. To find the answer to this question, Jared Diamond has explored and researched around the world for decades. The result of that is Guns, Germs, and Steel. This book explains that the disparities in human civilization are not due to individual abilities or any superior race, but rather geography and environment, as well as the resulting guns, germs, and steel. Today, we will broaden our perspective on the world through the insights conveyed in Guns, Germs, and Steel. This book started from a brief conversation in New Guinea. My friend Yari asked seriously, "Why do white people have so many possessions while we do not?" This question was not merely about the difference in wealth, but rather a question about why some civilizations dominated the world, while others did not. Jared Diamond first identifies the commonalities among humanity. Everyone was born with similar intelligence and creativity. However, the lands and environments they lived in were not the same. About 13,000 years ago, among the scattered humanity around the world, the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East had special conditions. Crops that are easy to store and rich in nutrients like wheat and barley grew, and animals that are easy to domesticate, such as goats, sheep, and cattle roamed around them. The people in this region were able to easily transition to agriculture, and agriculture soon produced surplus food. Surplus food changed the social structure. Beyond just the issue of filling stomachs, more people could be supported, and some of them were able to engage in work other than farming. Some made weapons and tools, while others created writing and laws and leaders. Armies, artisans, and merchants emerged. Agricultural societies established cities and nations, and developed politics, religion, and the economy. In contrast, many regions of Africa, the islands of Oceania, and the Americas lacked these conditions. For example, there were no large, domesticated animals like horses or cattle in the Americas. There were many animals that were difficult or dangerous to domesticate, and the main crops like corn and potatoes initially had low productivity. They had to rely on hunting and gathering for a long time, and the transition to agriculture was slow. This small difference expanded over time into disparities in the pace of urban development, technological innovation, and military power. The geographical shape of the continent also determined the fate of civilizations. The Eurasian continent is widely spread from east to west, sharing similar latitudes and seasons. Wheat and barley grown in the Middle East, as well as sheep and goats, were able to spread to Europe and China without much difficulty. In this process, agricultural techniques, metalworking skills, as well as writing and ideas also moved along. However, the American continent was long from north to south. It was difficult for crops or technology to adapt, while passing through the cold climate in the north to the tropical rainforests and deserts in the south. Africa was also hindered by the tropical climate and deserts along the equator, which obstructed the spread of civilization. The glassiness created by the environment led to a gap in weapons and technology. Societies with surplus food saw their populations grow rapidly, and some of them had the time to research war weapons. Europe developed the technology to work with iron, creating steel weapons and tools. Guns and cannons were not just simple inventions. They became the power of conquest and changed the balance of power in the world. The reason why Spain's Pizarro was able to overthrow the Inca Empire with just a few hundred soldiers was precisely because of these weapons and their organizational strength. Inca soldiers were far superior in numbers, but they were helpless against guns, steel, and surprise tactics. However, what truly determined Europe's victory was an invisible weapon: germs. For thousands of years, Europeans lived alongside livestock and were repeatedly exposed to diseases like smallpox and measles. Many people lost their lives, but those who survived developed immunity. When this germ arrived in the New World, the indigenous societies, which had no immunity at all, suffered tremendous damage. Sometimes an entire community collapsed due to a single epidemic, and before the Europeans even engaged in battle, the balance of power on the continent had already shifted. Jared Diamond repeatedly emphasizes that the gap between civilizations is not due to the superiority of any particular race. The beginning of agriculture, the direction of the continent, the presence or absence of livestock, and the history of germs have all created disparities over a long period of time. He says this: "We are all the same humans, and it was the environment that changed the course of history." This perspective still holds significant meaning today. The inequality of wealth and power that we witness today may be the result of these long-standing environmental differences. If we understand this fact, our view of the gaps between nations and cultures will change. I begin to think about ways to create a fairer world by letting go of the biases I had unconsciously held. I also become more aware of the influence of chance and environment in topics such as technological advancement, climate change, and global cooperation. Guns, Germs, and Steel is not just a simple history book. This book allows us to see through the journey of humanity and offers a new perspective on the grand narrative of civilization. Guns and steel were visible forces, germs were invisible forces, and the environment was the stage for all of it. When we realize this fact, we come to understand how significant the simple truth of being born at a specific point on this earth really is. Jared Diamond's insights resonate beyond the past and into our future choices. If the environment shapes history, then today's choices and cooperation can create tomorrow's environment. The climate crisis, resource issues, and inequality we face now demand deeper reflection and action to ensure we do not leave anew guns, germs, and steel for future generations. Guns, germs, and steel shakes our preconceived notions and fundamentally changes our perspective on the development of civilization. The realization that all our achievements are not due to individual abilities or the superiority of a particular race leads us to understand today's inequalities and to think about creating a fairer world. Now, how will you view the trajectory of humanity's past? And how do you wish to change the future? If you like today's content, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Please turn on notifications. Also, please let those around you know. Your encouragement greatly helps in creating the videos. I will always repay you with good videos.